Hello, hello.
Hello.
Thank you guys for joining me. I am Lynette M Bradshaw, your host of In Search of Me Now podcast. I want to welcome you to this special episode today as we are having some girl talk for our domestic violence awareness panel. We are breaking the silence with consistent conversation. So, like I said, we're just going to have some girl talk and we're going to share our experiences. We're going to share what we learned during our process and after. We're going to also share things that we didn't recognize at first. And we want you guys to join in with us. And as you come in, just let us know where you are watching us from in the comments. So I'm going to let my guests, introduce themselves to you and tell you a little about them. And then we're going to get on into the different topics. Miss Tanya?
Well, thank you. It's such an honor to be here. My name is Tanya Bankston, and I am the Change Doula. I am an author, a writer, a speaker, and a mental health therapist.
All right, Ms. Valerie.
Hi, thank you for having me. I am Valerie Stansel. I am your Purpose for Wellness navigator. I am an author, a speaker, a energy healer, and a domestic violence survivor and advocate.
All right. Well, as you guys know, I'm your host, Lynette M Bradshaw. I'm an author, speaker. I'm a confidence strategist, photographer, and podcast host. And I am a domestic violence. Y'all did not say we was going to have casual. I forgot what I was going to say.
Survivor.
Yes, domestic violence survivor. And I really wanted to do this for a long time to bring together some women who have experienced some of the things I have. We all come from different backgrounds, but as we know, domestic violence is not based on race, is not based on money, it's not based on anything. And it happens. Sometimes when we think it can't happen, it does happen. And so I wanted us to have a conversation because too many times women are silent because they feel shame. They're silent because they don't think anyone will understand. And sometimes they're silent because they want to put up a certain image for themselves for the world. And so I want us to be able to talk about this and continue to talk about it. And I know that not only women, but children and men also go through domestic violence or abuse. But tonight we're going to focus on domestic violence with women. So guys, who wants to start first? I want to share our story just a little bit. So whoever wants to go first can.
Well, I can go first.
Okay.
So basically, when Lynette, I was thinking about this. Like, when did I first see domestic violence or have an exposure to it? And, my earliest recollection was about 7 years old. And I remember my mom actually being a victim herself. And I remember, and just a few years ago, I had this as a flashback and I shared it with my mother. And she was like, oh my God, you remember that? But I remember her partner actually burning her with an iron.
Wow.
And I could remember for years seeing that iron print on my mom's leg and not putting that connection together that came as the result of him, abusing her. But I was 7. My first experience, real briefly, being a victim myself came at 16. And the guy that I was dating was actually, it started with the power and control. It started with the verbal abuse. And then after I was in that space where I was alienated from friends and family, then that's when the physical violence started.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Miss Valerie?
Yeah, Tanya makes me think back as well because I think in our earlier years, it wasn't considered like domestic violence. Like we didn't put a label on it. It was normal. That's how, relationships were. So we just accepted the fact. And then since I have been in a domestic violence relationship, I went back and thought of a relationship that I was in where I had physical abuse, but not knowing that, I was just like, oh, he's crazy. So that's why he does that. And then understanding, then when I was in the recent domestic violence situation, that they all tied in together. You know, I was in a physical and an emotional domestic violence situation. And that's the thing, like for so long, I thought domestic violence was only physical, but it's psychological, it's mental, emotional. It's so many different layers to domestic violence. And you know, I just thought that, you know, he was, you know, my knight in shining armor. And he wasn't, you know, and they say so many things to make you feel that way. But, you know, and that's what we're going to talk about today, those things that they say that their representatives say.
Yeah, that word representative, we learn about that really quick afterwards, but in the midst of it, you think everything is like you said, he came in to save and rescue us.
Yeah.
My first relationship after high school it turned out to be not what I thought it was. I thought he was the one who came in to rescue me. And I remember when I first saw him, I looked at him and I said, he looks sneaky. But that didn't stop me from going into a relationship with him. And it started like he just wanted me to himself. You know, he was 7 years older than me. So I kind of looked up to him. He kind of reminded me of my dad. And the first night that he slapped me, I didn't even see it coming. And I had a knife on the side of my seat. So I thought that would protect me because I was the girl who said, that's not going to happen to me. Nobody's going to do me like I saw the other teenagers being treated or how I saw the women in my family being treated. I said that wasn't going to happen to me. And it happened many times. And I was confused. And looking back at my family, that was the norm. That was how relationships went. That's what the men did if the women mouthed off or called them out on their stuff. He was physical, mental, and emotional, but the remainder of the relationships were mental and emotional, dealing with narcissists, but not knowing it. And you know, that's why I think it's so important for us to continue the conversations because, as I was saying to Valerie, there are young girls who are in these abusive relationships and they think it's cute because no one has told them that it's not okay and it's not cute. And as you were saying, there's different layers of domestic violence. So I wanted us to talk about that a little bit.
And you know that's good because I remember for me being that 16-year-old young lady, I remember being attracted to the bad boy. And I remember being attracted to the bad boy because I thought, well, whoa, okay, he's knowledgeable. He knows how to navigate the streets. And, you know, I grew up in a single parent home, no father there. So I always felt kind of vulnerable. So being with him and him knowing how to navigate it, first, it seems like that attention from him was like, yes, this is safe. This is protected. You know, him not allowing anybody in my space to talk to me or, you know, violate me in any type of way, not knowing that it was actually me being the prey, being set up by the predator. And that's one of the things when you are that emotional person that's vulnerable, you don't understand that the power and the control, they see you, it's like they have a sense that you are vulnerable, that you don't understand. They come in like that knight in shining armor to protect you, so it seems. But you're actually being prepared for the trap to slap clothes on you. So for me, it started out as emotional abuse first. You know, the first sign for me was he's the protector. Then it went from that protective space to the verbal insults and the verbal abuse. And then the last form of abuse for me became physical. And like you said, it started with the slap.
Mm-hmm.
One day, a slap just out of nowhere. I mean, it was one of those slaps where I saw the fireworks and my ears ringing and everything. And I'm like, wow, what was that for? But that's part of that cycle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is. The
Yeah.
thing about
Mm.
people being able to see that you're insecure, and I apologize, Valerie, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just agreeing.
Okay. When I was talking about you look at this person and somehow they look at you and they can tell you're insecure. They can tell that, you're looking for some sense of validation, and they are there to the rescue until they get you to trust them.
Mm-hmm.
They get you to trust them. But what I've also found is that the person who can see my insecurities are also hiding his own. He would never admit that he's insecure. He would never, own up to the fact that he doesn't feel the best about himself. But it's like he's at a higher level than you are, so he can still have some sense of power over you, because it gives him a stroke to his ego. If he can make you trust him, knowing what he's up to. And many people think that they're not in domestic violence relationships because they're not being hit, but they don't realize that they are being mentally controlled, and they're made to feel that everything is their fault that happens, but they don't see it as abuse.
Lynette, can I add one thing before we move on to Valerie sharing?
Yes.
As a mental health therapist, I have to say this because we're saying him, but I have counseled same-sex couples, both males and females, who have the exact same cycle of abuse. So, and I think the first time I experienced that as a therapist, it kind of like blew my mind. I was like, oh snap, this happens in same-sex relationships as well. And I don't think I was aware of that. So I don't know if our viewers are aware of that as well.
Mm-hmm. Miss Valerie?
That's a good point. For me, mine in the beginning, when I didn't know it was domestic violence, it was physical. And like you both, he just hit me for no reason. I was in the car and I said something and he just backhanded me. We were going to go pick up a dog and I said something and he just backhanded me. I'm like, what the heck was that for? And, then it just progressed into hitting and, making me have sex with him when I didn't want to. I mean, it was just really bad, but I just never connected the dots. I'm just thinking this man is crazy, and I got to get away from him. And then in my latest relationship, it was emotional. And he talked to me for months prior to us actually meeting in person. So I, identified that as him interviewing me and getting all the information that he needed so that when we did meet, he came like a knight in shining armor. He knew everything I liked, did everything I liked. And if I put my finger on something, he would buy it for me. You want that? I'll do that. Let's go look at wedding rings. Like the first weekend, we were together. And I'm just like, oh my God, he must really, care about me. And, it just one thing led to another. And then it was the power and control of him telling me when I could go. My family didn't want me around them. Just make sure that I'm with him all the time. And then when I started to find out how he was, that's when he started to belittle me and become really verbally abusive, talking down to me and cursing at me and doing all kinds of things to make me feel less than I was, because like Lynette said, they have the behavior problem, and he is insecure, so he can't let me know his insecurity because he's trying to have power and control over me. Mm-hmm. And, the power and control is so many different dimensions, like using intimidation, emotional abuse, isolation, denying and blaming, and the list goes on. And he was every one of those things. And when I met him on day one, within the first hour, he gave me a red flag. And I chose to ignore it because he would always preface when he was giving me a red flag, he was like, back in the day, I would have done this. Back in the day, I would have done that. And, he came across, he said he was a marketing producer for ESPN. So I'm thinking, well, he's, got a really good job. That was probably back in the day when, we were all doing, things we didn't have any business. And, after talking to my advocate, she was saying that was how he was trying to identify if I had researched him to know who he
Wow.
was. And so he gave me a red flag within the first hour. And I remember, after you play it back in your head, I remember saying to myself, is that him like trying to tell me something? Is that how he is really now? No, but he said back in the day. So, I mean, they present themselves in so many different ways as the false representative. They come across as who you want them to be, but they can't be that way for very long because
Right.
that's not who they are. And unfortunately for me, this is what this person does. He does this to women, and he was a criminal on top of it. So I had to do the domestic violence scene and then the criminal phase of all of this. So it was devastating. It was really devastating.
Let's talk about the red flags, because I think some women don't want to talk about what they've been through or what they're going through because sometimes they feel like it's my fault because I saw the red flags and I didn't leave. Some type of way I have to blame myself, but that's not the case because there are some people that are so slick you don't even see it. But then there are red flags, like you said, that we see, but we deny it. I know I did when I looked in this person's eyes and I said, he looks sneaky. And it wasn't until after my divorce, which was many, many years later, that God took me back to that moment of when I saw him, what I said to myself, and then showed me how I ignored it. I played it down. I said that I was just overreacting. I said that, he's not really like that. His eyes are cute. Yeah, denying that red flag almost cost me my life. And I want us to talk about those red flags. What other red flags do you think that you may have ignored when this happened, or the reasons why you didn't walk away then?
Ooh, I know for me, the red flags, one of the major red flags was the isolation, separating from friends and family. Like saying, well, you don't need to be, you don't need to go there. You don't need to be with them. You have me. Let's spend time together. Always being at that point of contact for everything and alienating everybody else. That was a major red flag. Another red flag that I would say would be to always seem as though they're the right one. They're always like reassuring you of everything. It doesn't make a difference what the situation is. They're reassuring you, reaffirming you, validating you. So it's like they're able to pick up on whatever your shortfall is or character defect or weakness and always validating that. That's a huge red flag.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a huge red flag. And, my abuser did that. And he would always reiterate what I didn't like, but he wasn't like that. Like I know that you don't like people who cheat, people who don't lie. And I would never do that to you because I don't like that either. Right. And then the first weekend we were together, he took me to a jewelry store to look at wedding rings. Like we went in the jewelry store. This is how silly I was, how naive I was. you know, he was like, "Is there a Jared around here?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, there's one over here." And I'm thinking that he has, you know, some previous dealings with Jared. He wants to go pay a bill or something, and you know, they greet you at the door. Rings. I'm like, engagement rings. I don't even know your middle name. So we sit down, look at the rings. He's like, "Do you see any you like?" I was like, "No." And so he had tells the guy, you know, what kind he wants and all this, and how much he wants to spend. And the guy, you know, brings them all out, and they put them in settings. And he's like, "So which one do you like?" I said, "Neither." And he said, "You're not talking much." I'm like, "Why are we here?" So the salesman's like, "You're not doing a lot of talking. How long have you been together?" I was getting ready to say, "Today." And he was like, "Oh, we've been together a year." And he would just keep talking for me. Like he
Wow.
wouldn't let me say anything. So then we, you know, we get done. You know, he tells the guy that, you know, gives him his number. I'll be back. You know, give me the pictures of the ring and, you know, everything I need. So we go out, and he said, "How come you didn't say anything? You know, I told you I wanted to marry you." And I'm like, "But I just met you face to face, and you're taking me to go get a ring. I don't even know anything about you." And that was one of the things that I learned in therapy, that that is like one of the biggest red flags. Like they call it like the love bomb, where they want to marry you, they want to sweep you off your feet. They're talking to you all the time, texting you all the time, calling you all the time. "Where are you at? How come you're not here? How come you're not doing this?" "Oh, I just really miss you." But you know, they're just setting you up, and you think that it is so cute, you know, or
Yeah.
that he really cares about me. No, he does not. It's all part of the plan. And you know, and especially if you're a younger girl and
Mm-hmm.
they're doing all these things for you, you misconstrue and can't see the obvious because you're so infatuated with what he's doing with for you and
Mm-hmm.
infatuated with him. You know, he doesn't want me around my friends because he's trying to protect me. You know, he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
want me around my family because he knows that they're bad. You know, they're not good. Um, you know, you know, and he would tell me, he said, "When we go out, I don't ever want you to take your handbag because everything you need, I can buy."
Hmm.
I'm like,
Okay.
"No."
Mm.
I mean, let me tell you, homeboy, if he was good, for real good, that would be the perfect man that you would want. But it was all part of the plan. It was all part of the scheme.
Y'all, let's go ahead. I don't mean. I'm sorry. I thought you were done. I didn't
No,
mean to
I'm
cut you
done.
off.
I'm done.
I want to just thank some of the listeners who are here. Miss Belinda said, "Hello, ladies." She also said, "Those red flags will save you from pain in your life if you pay attention."
Yeah.
Um, I really wanted to add on to what you were saying about that rushing
Mm,
of trying to knock you off your feet. The last relationship like that I dealt with, it was within 2 weeks, but I tell y'all, it felt like it had been a year the way he was talking, and I
mm,
was just feeling dizzy in my head. And I thought um, I wasn't gonna fall for that anymore. The manipulation of 1 minute we're talking about marriage, and the next minute, well, we don't have to rush. My mind was dizzy because you came in and he literally swept me off my feet emotionally. And the thing that is so crazy is that he would say things that I had never told anybody, but I felt it. And when I look back at it, I was like, what the world? What school did he go to? Because he has a PhD in manipulation and narcissism, but I could not see any of that. And even though I thought that I was at a place where I was healing from my past, that relationship was the last thing I should have been in
mm,
because I wasn't ready, and I was still carrying the stuff that I had been dealing with before because I didn't notice that I still needed to heal. So coming in and sweeping you off your feet really quick, making it seem like they're just so head over heels in love with you in a couple of weeks. And when you feel yourself being taken fast like that, that is a red flag. That's like double red flags. It's just beeping at you
mhm.
because it's just like if this is really for me, then why are we moving so fast? What is
Right.
the purpose of us moving so fast if this is real?
Mhm. Mhm.
And while we're on the red flags, this is something that I really want us to talk about because I know for myself, so I know there are other women that are dealing with it too. It's easy to look at the abuser, whatever type of abuse that it is or it was. But where were we when we connected with that person? I really want women to look at that and say, okay, so where was I emotionally? Was I dealing with daddy issues? Was I dealing with mama issues? Was I being, still felt rejected? Did I feel abandoned? Had I been through some type of sexual abuse? What was it inside of us that was shining a red light to them to attract them to us? Because we have to take ownership, not blaming us for it, but taking ownership and owning our part of where was I that allowed him to be attracted to me? Because until we take ownership of that and deal with it, we're going to continue to attract the same character, a person, to us. But we don't want that. Nobody wants that. But it's hard to say, well, this is how I felt. This is what I needed. Oh, I really do want to get married because marriage is a validation to me. So when you get swept off your feet and you are talking about marriage in a relationship you've only been in a day or 2 weeks, that's a red flag. But you can't see that because somewhere inside of you, you've identified marriage as the ultimate validation that you're enough, that you're lovable, that you are not who everybody made you feel like you were.
Well, for me, it was all of that. Everything that you just said. I mean, from growing up, like I said, growing up without a father. So without a father, not seeing examples of what a healthy relationship should look like. Then being exposed to toxic relationships. So having that identity, then for me in my mind, that was normal. And then even after I had been in a physically abusive relationship, and I got out of it with my life because I didn't share, that I had that loaded double-barrel shotgun placed up to my temple and him pulling the trigger. It's only by the grace of God that the gun didn't go off, because he pulled the trigger a second time and it still jammed. Okay. Wow. But for me, even having escaped that relationship with my life, I still ended up in several other toxic relationships. So I had to come to that place. It's like, okay, Tanya, the common denominator in each one of these relationships is you. They don't know each other.
Right.
You are the one who either picked them or fell for them, whatever verbiage I want to attach to it. The bottom line is it was me. I had to make some different choices, and I was looking for love. I was seeking out validation and approval and appreciation. I was. And at some point, it was like, come on now, you got to do something different. Because if you don't do something different, you're going to repeat the same pattern. Yeah. And even once I came to that reality and I got married this last time, because I've been married 3 times. But this last time, I noticed a few years back a toxic behavior that came creeping from, I was like, whoa, where'd that come from? But my husband and I had some words, and I don't remember what the disagreement was, but I remember this. I remember he said something and I didn't like what he said. And you know what I did to him? I had this bottle of lotion in my hand and I threw it at him. And when I threw it at him, I was like, oh my God, he's going to slap me up or whatever. But you know what? I was like, Tanya, where did that behavior come from? Where did that behavior come from? That was something from my past that I had never addressed, never dealt with. So at that point, that was something toxic from my past that I needed to address. My husband looked at me. He said, don't you ever do anything like that again, ever.
Wow.
And when I tell you the fear of God was put in me. But But it showed me, getting out of that toxic relationship didn't mean that the toxic relationship had gotten out of me.
Exactly. That is so much. That's it.
That's it right there. And and that's for me, like you both said, I was all that. I had just I had lost my husband. I was married for 34 years. I lost my husband, and I had just decided to date again. And then I'm telling. And one thing we do is tell them everything. We need to stop telling them everything.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, I want this, I want that, I want you to do this, I want you to do that. They take all that information in, but then I was vulnerable. I wanted to get married again. I was lonely, all of those things. And he knew that, so he played on that, and that's the thing. I remember when someone asked me that same question when me and Lynette were talking, how offended I was that person said, well, what were you doing? I'm like, excuse me? It's not my fault he did that. But it's not your fault that they do it, but where were you emotionally?
Right.
That you didn't recognize it, or you seen it and just wanted it to be okay. And that's a very, very important conversation. And we need to know that we are healed and do that work, that's still those things that are still inside that we think we're healed from. Make sure that they're all that toxicity is out. And that we are totally healed, because that emotional trigger can happen at any time. And if you're not healed from it, you will go right back to that same time when that situation happens.
Let's look at the family aspect of it. When I looked back at that first physically abusive relationship, I recognized later that this person was just like my father. He was 7 years older than me, but everything about him was just like my father. So not only was I trying to get my father's attention and my father's love and my father's validation, I was still trying to get him because I saw him, but I saw my dad. And so when those red flags came up, you can't really hold that against him because he reminds you so much of your father. But I also came to the point of understanding that in my family, that was normal for men to abuse women and no one say anything, for men to abuse their wives and their brother, the wives or the girlfriend's brothers don't say anything because it's normal. And I also grew up with hearing that having a half a man is better than no man at all. So I figured I got a man. They don't have a man. I have a man. So with all his faults, I still have a man. And I look back in my family at all the relationships. I didn't know what a healthy relationship looked like. I didn't know how a man treated a woman with respect and adoration, and he listened to her and he built her up. I never saw that. So coming into these different relationships I attracted them because all that baggage I had inside, it was on the outside of me. I looked desperate. I took whatever they gave. I accepted whatever they gave because that's what I was used to. So I want us to talk a little bit about the family aspect, the history in our families and what we see and how it creates an image in our mind of relationships. And when these different types of relationships come into our lives, we don't know that it's bad necessarily because that's what we've already seen.
Ooh, that one for me is, that's so loaded. So once again, I grew up in a single parent household, and I saw my mom date some guys that were not cool. That's just the nicest way I could say it. But the thing is that at some point, because I can remember as early as 9 years old, saying to myself, you know what, when I get grown, I don't want to be bothered with men. I don't want a husband. I just want to have my babies, and raise my babies. I don't want to be bothered with men. Now, 9, not even correlating, it's like that single parenthood, and, that's a whole nother thing. But I knew enough that I saw bad men and I didn't want any parts of that.
But do Do you agree or disagree that when we have that idea of I'm not going to deal with this man or that type of man, or I'm just going to have my babies. Do you agree that sometimes that's exactly what we attract because we haven't dealt with the wound that caused us to come to that point?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I believe that energy is placed out there, but I do also believe that you have people who pick up on their predatory behavior. They have predatory behavior and they pick up on that energy, and they take full advantage of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Valerie, do you want to add something to
Yeah,
that?
because in my family, when I came from a two-parent household. I mean, it was my grandmother and my grandfather, and she was always the dominant one. She was always telling him what to do. I don't think the man could breathe without her permission. And it just, I'm like, I don't ever want to be in a marriage like that where you treat him like he's a piece of dirt. And I would always remember, I'm like, and you don't work anywhere. He works 3 jobs, and you sit here all day. I mean, she was taking care of us, because she raised me and my cousin. But the thing was, like, she didn't treat him like a man. Like, she treated him like she was the dominant person. So it was always fighting all the time. And then he cheated. I ended up knowing the woman. I would see him with the woman, and I would be like, oh, that's because he treats her. She does what she does. But then when you become accustomed to that, that's how you function. You think that's how, relationships are supposed to be, but it's not. And, somebody wrote here on my page, it says, he swept you off your feet because those things you never felt and wanted to hear, and subconsciously you ignored the red flags. Now I have to disagree with that because I did feel love. I didn't feel, any negativity when I was in my marriage. You know, so I don't think that that's necessarily true. And when you're in a domestic violence relationship, people can always judge and think they know why you do what you do when they don't really know, the truth behind the situation.
You
But
hear the Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, I mean, it's just one of the things that I'm in a domestic violence play called Not Just October, and one of the things we talk about throughout that play is to not please do not judge because you do not know the situation. And just because you think that, she should be doing this or she should be doing that or acting this way or leaving or doing whatever, until you do it and you live it, then don't tell me what to do in my relationship.
We hear the question all the time, well, why don't you just leave? Now, I don't know about you guys. I'm sure we have different reasons for it, but you hear that question all the time. Why don't you just leave? I wouldn't let them treat me this way. But your emotions aren't tied to this. So
Mm-hmm.
you can't see it the way that I see it. Sometimes not sometimes, we don't see the truth until we start to distance ourselves from that. And that's not always easy. There are different reasons that a woman may possibly stay. She may say, well, I don't want to take my children away from their dad.
Mm-hmm.
Or, he's not always bad. It's just certain things that I do that provoke him. We start blaming ourselves as to why he acts that way. So that gives us an excuse to try and stay a little bit longer and make it work. But every woman has her own reason as to why she doesn't leave when it's already bad. It could even be fear. And every woman has her own journey and her own story. And sometimes she will leave when no one will think that she will leave.
Right. Exactly.
I left the first person because the last time when he threw me over a chair and yelled at our 2-year-old son, I said, I can't do this anymore. I was terrified, but I found a strategy to be able to leave. I set it in motion because I was tired. I
Mm-hmm.
should have left when I first met him, but I didn't. Even after having a child, the abuse continued. And more so, it wasn't always physical, but I was so afraid that he would hit me again that I walked on, pins and needles trying to maneuver this relationship. So I really want women to hear this. I would love if men heard this. Don't ask them why you didn't leave. Why won't you just leave? It's not always that easy. And then if she feels like you're not supporting her or you're judging her, then she'll stop talking to you. She'll stop telling you what she's going through because you are going to judge her. And that's the last thing that she needs.
Right. And, there are so many different reasons. Like you said, women don't leave. Women don't leave because they don't work. So they don't have any work history. They don't have any insurance. They don't have a bank account. They don't want him to take the kids from them. They don't have a place to go. So they stay, for a plethora of reasons. It's not just because they just want to stay, and I used to feel that same way. When I had a girlfriend who was in a very violent domestic violence relationship. He almost killed her. And I would say, why don't you just leave? You're so stupid. Why don't you just leave? She had like 6 or 7 kids. She couldn't leave.
Right.
And until I went into therapy, because I had to go to therapy from, being in this situation, did I learn the many reasons women don't leave. And I was surprised at the reasons women don't leave. So before you judge, tend to look at the situation. And like you said, she needs you to help her, to be an advocate for her and to be there for her and help her to make that plan to leave, like giving you her keys, giving you her information, giving you a bag, all of that, help her that way. Don't judge her, but help her that way, and understand when she's ready to leave, just like you were ready to leave, Lynette. When you got ready, that's when you will leave, not when I say or anyone else says.
Right. Dale says that she had to plan and then wait for an exit. Let's see. Miss Sherry said, so she said, hi, Sherry. Putting in a plan and knowing that partner, knowing that you can't just, get your bags and walk out the door, knowing that your strategy is going to include probably you have to wait till they leave and wait till they're really gone for when you can leave and be totally out of the area before they come back. But for someone to judge them because they haven't found the courage to leave yet, you push them back. You don't pull them forward. It's really more so, to me, it comes across as a manipulation, because you feel like if you keep telling her she's stupid, if you keep saying, well, why you did this is this, she's gonna leave. Well, then in some cases you're no better than the person that she's with, because he's using the same tactics to push her down, to beat her down with his words, along with probably his hands. And now she's on both sides. Where is she gonna go?
Right.
And I know we only have a few more minutes, but I really wanted we focused on the abuser. I want us to focus on the woman, because as we talked about before, that we attract these characters to us because of what's going on on the inside, what we are lacking in our soul. We attract these people. It's just like I was saying, it's just like a beaming light. Come on over here. I'm broken. Just keep on breaking me. And I want us to talk about, from our own experiences, how we can speak to women who are in those positions where we were, to help them to really get to the mirror to see, I need to deal with some things. I need to change the circumstances of my life by dealing with me.
Ooh. So let me just start by saying, for me, when I looked at the woman in the mirror, that young girl in the mirror, the first thing I learned about myself was that I did not feel like I deserved any better. I didn't deserve any better. My self-esteem was already so damaged and so broken before I got into the relationship with the person that was abusing me. So when the abuse started, it was like a natural progression for me. The healing process for me began when I began to look at myself in the mirror and love me, seek my approval, my validation, my appreciation, and my celebration of myself, instead of looking for it outside of me. That was the healing process for me. And getting counseling. I had to get counseling.
Yes, most definitely.
And I had to get therapy as well. And then looking inside and seeing what what was going on with me, and realizing that it didn't just start there. It had started back at childhood, and not addressing some of the issues, the childhood trauma that I had sustained. And then the loss of my husband. My husband was sick for 14 years. So I took care of my husband for 14 years. And then he passed. So now I'm single for now it was 5 years. So, I was looking for affection. I was looking for attention. I was looking for a relationship. I wanted to get married to someone again. And he knew all that. So he came as all that. But he wasn't. Like the book I'm writing is called Knight in Shining Armor. Knight in Rusted Armor, Mistaken Identity. I mean,
Wow.
that's who he was. He didn't come as the knight in white armor. He came in rusted armor, but I couldn't see it because I was so busy seeing him as my savior, my sweep me off my feet guy.
Mm-hmm. So the ladies that are watching, the ladies that will watch, and this will be on my podcast on the apps. What I want you to hear us saying today is you are not alone. And many women have gone through this, are going through this, but you can't get through this. But I really want you to turn to the mirror, your mirror, to look at you. Many times we look in the mirror, we just see our hair and make sure our clothes are correct, make sure we got on the best clothes, we have all the degrees on the wall, but we do not look at our eyes because our eyes tell the story. When we look in our eyes, there's a replay, there's a tape that's going over and over of what they said, what daddy didn't do, what mama did, who abused you, who left you. You have all this stuff replaying. So many times we don't look in our eyes. We forget the beauty of our eyes. We forget the shape of our face, because sometimes when we look in the mirror, all we see is who they say we were. All we see is what we didn't get. So now I have to do everything I can to get this person, to somebody to love me, for somebody to see me, for someone to say you're beautiful, to someone to say to me, regardless of what you've been through, you're still good enough. But it's so important that we start to say that to ourselves and take the power back for ourselves and not give it over to someone else, because we're hoping that they will fill every void that's in our heart, that's in our soul. The heart is always speaking. It holds secrets. And if you don't stop and deal with those issues, that they're not silent, they're speaking higher than your own voice. If you don't stop and deal with that voice and deal with that pain, you're going to repeat it. You're going to have this history and this lifestyle of, I always get hurt. My heart is so good that people just take advantage of me. When are you going to take ownership of what you need to do?
Exactly.
Ownership is powerful, you guys. And we know that. We know we dealt with what they did, but we had to take ownership of what's inside of me.
Right.
What do I need? What does love look like to me? What if, regardless of what daddy did, who am I? Regardless of how many people talked about me or how many people bullied me, but who am I? And we can only get to that place when we start to really take ownership and look in the mirror at the beautiful woman that we are, all with our scars. We all have scars. And even with those scars, we are still good enough, and we are deserving of true love. We are deserving of being respected, and we shouldn't continue to live our lives only to have the same result every time, unless that's what we choose to have. Right. So guys, I want to thank everybody for joining us in this conversation. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing this out, because I know there's other people that can benefit from it. And this will be on the podcast. But I know that talking on a public forum is not always easy for everybody. So if you would like to contact me or leave a message so I can get it to any of the ladies, send me an inbox message here on Facebook. Lord have mercy. On Facebook, on Facebook, or you can email me at insearchofmenowpodcast@gmail.com. Ladies, I don't know about you, but I've had a good time. What about y'all?
Yes, it was very good. It was very good. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank y'all for saying yes. All right. So that's all that we have today. Whether you're watching this on the replay, you're listening to it on the app. Thank you for watching us at In Search of Me Now podcast. I'm your host, Lynette M Bradshaw, and we are out of here. See y'all later.